everyone, and welcome to What's Brewing with ESGI. I'm Rochelle, and I'll be your presenter today. Here we are, we're logged into my account, and you can log into ESGI from any internet-connected device, and you can use ClassLink and Clever for a single sign-on. Now, when you log in, you already know how to put all your students in, either by clicking the Add Student button or uploading your whole roster, or maybe your district already does it for you. But I really want to bring your attention to that settings area. So way up here by our logo, you see 3 lines. If you click on that, you're going to see some important pieces of information. One is my account, settings, contact us, help, and of course, log out. We're going to spend time in my account and settings today. In the my account, we want to point out to you that this is where you can reset your username and your password if you ever need to, and also to let you know that if you purchase ESGI on your own, you can renew it at any time. So you just simply click this renew button here in the My Account area, and it also tells you when your expiration date is as well. Now, please know that ESGI is a subscription, so if you have some time remaining on your account and you decide to purchase, it will just add 12 months on to your current expiration date, so you will never lose anything by registering early for the next year. So that's the My Account area here. And then back to the 3 lines and the settings area. This is where we're going to spend just a bit of time because there's some interesting things in the settings area that you might not have known about. One is, if you are one of those teachers who likes to alphabetize your students by first name instead of last name, ESGI will do that for you. So you can choose that here in the Sort Students By area. Then in the keyboard shortcuts, if we expand this area, you can see that I have enabled the shortcuts. Now, this is super important if you're doing one-on-one testing, sitting side by side, looking at the same computer screen, which a lot of you are probably doing. Did you know that you can enable the shortcuts and then use those left and right arrow keys on your keyboard to mark the yes and no? So the student never sees you marking the answer. So go ahead and enable that so that you can start using the left and right arrow keys. You can also customize what the buttons say. So instead of the yes and no, which is the default, you can customize your buttons to be whatever you'd like them to be. An example would be C and I for correct and incorrect. And you can change them at any time. If students start to get wise to those, you could just go ahead and change them. So that's the test button labels. Now the student testing options there's 3 pieces to this one. Student screen. Many of you are probably using student screen, and that's to link 2 devices. So the child perhaps holds an iPad, you are at your laptop, the child then can see the test item on their screen. They never see you clicking yes or no because they're standing apart from you. If you want to do that, you would need to get a code to link the 2 devices. So you can come here in the settings area and you can get the code to link the 2 devices together, and you just follow these 3 simple steps here. Another place we have here is the self-assess administration area. Now, some of you are kindergarten teachers and you would probably not want your children yet to go to the computer and take tests by themselves. But those of you who are first grade teachers on this call and beyond, you are probably desiring for some of your kids to go to take some skills tests on their own. Well, we have that in ESGI now. It's called self-assess. However, if you're a teacher who says, I'm never going to use that feature, I'm just going to turn it off right here, you can do that. So if you're a pre-K teacher, a K teacher, and you know you're never going to use it, go ahead and turn it off here, and then you'll never see that self-assess option. You also can lock your home screen. If you want to, you can make it even more secure by adding a 4-digit PIN number. So you might consider that as well. So that's under the student testing options. So we've covered all of these, but there's just a couple more. Test results verbiage. We've heard from teachers that sometimes they don't like to see correct and incorrect underneath those pie charts, or perhaps on the parent letter. So you can customize it here in your account if you want it to always say something different. If you want it to say mastered and not mastered, go ahead and write that in here. Any kind of verbiage that you would like, you can put it in right here. So go ahead and use that if you'd like to customize your account. And the last one is the test session results. Maybe you didn't know that you could see the results two ways in ESGI. One is that pie chart, and a lot of you like that. You like the children to see when it's all green, that means they got it. However, some of you don't want that. You don't want the child to see the score, so we give you an option. If you just want the success you finished icon, you could go ahead and check that, and when you get done with each test, that's the screen that will show. So there you go. There's some settings that you might want to have on your account to help customize your account. So make sure you go to that 3 bars up at the very top to see if you would like to make any customization. Now, still on this home screen, a couple more things to point out. One is that student screen option that we talked about. You don't always have to go to those 3 bars way up there to launch the student screen. You can, but another option is right here. Launch student screen. That's a lot easier just to come here, click on that. It gives you the directions on how to do it and the code that you need to link the 2 devices. Now, once linked, they'll stay linked for a while, so you don't have to keep doing that every time that another child is tested. You could simply hand the iPad to the next child. It stays linked. You run a different test with a different kid. So that's launch student screen right here. And the last super important thing that is missed often is the help button way up here. Super helpful. That's why it's called the help button. It's got a lot of good articles here and a lot of videos for you to watch. They're very short, so go ahead and click on the Getting Started with ESGI, very easy videos here. And you might also want to come down here where it says What's New and check out the new things in ESGI. So there's the help, there's the 3 lines, there's the home screen, and let's move on to the next topic. Ways to test. Now, a lot of you are sitting side by side with the student. We talked about student screen, linking 2 devices. And the last new way to test students is that self-assess that I mentioned. I'd like to show you those right now. So sitting side by side with my friend Parker here, I can run a shapes test. You can see the yes, no buttons, and I can click through, taking notes as needed, skipping any question, and closing at any time. That's the traditional yes, no way. Then the student screen, as we mentioned, launch it here, link 2 devices, stand apart, and the last one is called student self-assess. This one, very unique to ESGI because we've never had students on their own taking tests. Now we have a bank of tests that you can choose from. They're designed for 1st grade and above. Now that does not mean that kindergarten teachers and kindergarten students can't use these tests. Just know that they're a little bit more advanced. They're designed for students who are a little bit more independent. Now you can find them in the Test Explorer, which we'll look at in just a minute, but I wanted to demonstrate how to test with the student self-assess. So with Parker chosen here, I can see some different icons on some of my tests. This little student icon indicates that a student can take the test by themselves. So I can decide to launch the test here for Parker by clicking the test. Now notice it gives 2 options. And the reason why is because all of these self-assess tests do have the exact same test one-on-one and then a version of it for the student self-assess. So at this point, I can decide, is Parker really ready to do self-assess or do I still need to do the one-on-one with him? Well, I've decided that student self-assess is the way to go. So I'm going to click that and here we go. So here's Parker's test. Now I can assign up to 3 tests to Parker, and that would be he would take one and be done with it and then take the next, and then he would do it right in a row. And then when he was done with all 3, he could bring me back the iPad and we'd be done. So what does a student self-assess test look like? It looks like this, and this is great because it reads the question to them. And the students are directed with a practice test first of how to navigate through what the self-assessed test. But once they've taken the practice test, they know how to listen to the directions and then make their selection. They always click here to advance, and they go on through the test. Now, again, I would be listening to each prompt here and then making my selection. So you can see this one is an introduction to computers and actually introduction to all kinds of technology. And so you would go through this very quickly, and then it would give you the success icon at the end. And so that's how easy it is for a student to do a self-assess. Now, if Parker had more tests assigned, as I mentioned, it would keep going like that. And so the Intro to Tech test right here that we were just doing was Parker's Identify Basic Components. And there's his score, and here's the test date. So you can see how the score rolls up to your account there. So that's ways to test side by side, and student screen, linking to devices, and self-assess. Now, besides ways to test, there are different types of tests in ESGI. Most of you are familiar with the yes-no because most of our bank of tests is yes-no. However, we have single score, we have rubrics, we have self-assess. So we're going to look at what each one of those looks like and how to use the test type filter in the Test Explorer to find what you're looking at. Again, with Parker chosen here, I'm going to show you the different types of tests that we have. This one here, a money test, traditional yes, no. Sees the image on the screen, teacher reads the direction, what's the name of this coin, child answers, teacher listens, and then marks the yes and no. Typical yes, no. Next, single score. Single score would be when a child has to do a task and you need to just enter in one score. This could be a lot of things, but the one we're showing you today is count to 100. We know you do not want to click through 100 questions saying yes, no, every time the child advances 1 to 100. That would take such a long time. So the single score test operates like this. Child, please count to 100. Child begins counting. Child stops counting at 75. Teacher enters 75 in the test score here. Can take notes if you want to. So maybe they really ended at 75, but they missed a couple. You could put it in there too, and then you save it. And that's how a single score is scored. So think about using that for reading levels, perhaps. If there's 5 reading levels in kindergarten, you observe the child reading, they get to 4 out of 5, you can enter that in. So it can be used in that way as well. Then we have rubric tests. This one happens to be kindergarten math readiness. Let's see what it looks like. Now this looks like a paper rubric, but it is a digital version of the kind of rubric you're probably already using in class. Notice this one has 4 levels, and it has 3 criteria. It also has descriptors for each one of the levels here. All I need to do in this case is to observe the child doing a particular task. The first one says recognize and name the numerals 0 to 20. Then I read each description and decide where the child lands. So maybe they land here, count a sequence here, recognize shapes here. Notice it scores it on the side, gives you a total, allows you to take notes if you'd like, and then save it. This little graph is kind of neat at the end, so you can see the highest area was uses count sequence to count sets up to 10. That's the highest answer. Now you can export it here and view it in a different way, but it also then translates to the home screen as the pie chart. So very cool rubric tests. And the last one's at self-assess. Let's look at it one more time. So this one's compare 3D shapes. I can click on it and you can see. Now here's the practice test we talked about. Every child will have a practice test that they should take before they do any self-assess. But if the child's already taken the practice test once, they don't need to take it again. So here we go, compare 3D shapes, start the session. So again, child has the iPad, headphones on, listens to the directions, and then makes their choice. So listen, choice. Oh, and notice that each of the answers also can be read to them. There you go. So the self-assess at this time, we have a small bank, as I mentioned, but our goal is to really expand in our self-assess arena in the next year. So be looking for a lot more self-assess to be added to ESGI. Now, a little word about those of you who like to customize tests. Currently, you can customize all yes/no tests. You can customize the single score tests that you find in ESGI. You can customize the rubrics that you find in ESGI. The only one you can't right now is self-assess because there's so many layers to that with the directions being read and so on. So just know that you can make copies and edit all 2,000 tests in ESGI that are the yes, no, single score, and rubric types. All right, let's go back and see. Oh, let's use the test type filter. Let's do that one more time. Good thing I have these notes here. Go to the Test Explorer. If you're looking for a particular type of test, we do have that as a filter over here. So if you just want to look at all of our rubric tests, for instance, you just click on rubric and you see that so far we have 11 tests in here. But you can also create your own. So you can start from scratch or you can edit any of our rubric tests that you see here. All right, subject tabs. Subject tabs, super helpful for organizing your ESGI account. I hope you're all using subject tabs, but if you're not, I'll show you how. So ESGI comes with tabs when you start your account. They're suggested for your grade level. Does not mean that those are the only tests in ESGI. So you can definitely modify what's on your home screen on day one. You can also make your own subject tabs, which I'll show you how to do. And you can organize them in any way you choose, including using the drag and drop feature. So let's check it out. Back on the home screen, what we're talking about are these subject tabs across the top. You can see in my demo account, I have lots of subject tabs. I like to group tests in different ways. So you can see that I have a K Math tab and I have a K ELA tab. These would be standard tabs that you would get if you were a kindergarten teacher just starting an ESGI account. Then of course we have first grade, we have second grade. But again, these are by no means all the tests that you should give if in kindergarten for ELA. This is just a sampling here. So if you look at these tests and you say, I'm probably never going to use blending, you can easily remove it from your subject tab simply by clicking Remove Test from the subject. Now you can even do that if you already have data in it. If you no longer want to see that data for whatever reason, like final sounds here, I can still remove the test from the subject, but don't worry, the data will still be there. Kind of like you're just putting it back in the file cabinet, and if you ever want it back, you can just pull it out and it will all be there. So go ahead and remove things that don't mean anything to you at this time. All right, so those are the standard ones, but you can also make your own. So you can see I made one here called rubrics, and I just put rubric tests that I want right there. I also made an intro to tech and I put tests in there just for that purpose. But if you want to make your own, scroll all the way over to the very end and it says Add Subject tab. Click that. Now decide how you want to group your tests together. One way that I thought of that when I was a teacher, I liked to communicate on a weekly basis to my parents. So I might want to make a subject tab just for the week. So I'm going to make one for tomorrow. Can you believe it's already December 1st tomorrow? And save. Now I have a bucket to place all the tests in. But I need to decide at this point, what am I going to teach next week? So maybe I'll go to my lesson plans and I'll look and I'll decide which kinds of tests I want to put in there. Now I can do it a couple ways. One is I can simply click this Add Test button. Here I can enter in a name like money. I'm going to teach about money next week. And then I can choose a money test here. But this is kind of like picking a movie and not previewing it before you show it in class. I would not recommend that to do. So don't do that here either. If you know that you have a money test in mind, you've already previewed it in the Test Explorer, then do that here. However, here's what I would recommend. Go to the Test Explorer. In the search here, put the word money. There's 15 tests about money. Now, some of them are identify coins. Some of them are add how much money together. They're very different skills. So look here and see, either by previewing it this way or using the preview button, you can actually see what kind of money test. So even though this one's called money, how much money, you really want to see what it looks like. So this is adding money together. Might not be what I'm looking for. Maybe I just want to identify coins. So I would look for that as well. So let's say this is the test that I want. After I've previewed it, I can add it to that weekly tab right here and save it. Now that money test is there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm teaching rhyming next week. So I'm going to put rhyming in here. Now again, there's identify rhyme. There's all different kinds of rhymes. So I would look through here. There's 31 examples of rhyming tests. So I pick the one I like, which is this one, and I put it in there. So you can see how it's so much better to actually go to the Test Explorer and look at the test before you put it in the home screen in that bucket. So now we're back on the home screen. Notice I picked an ELA and a math. It doesn't matter in subject tabs. You can combine all different subjects in a subject tab. The reason you want to do this is this is what prints on all the reports. So now when I give these two tests, money and rhyming, the results of those two tests are going to print on the parent letter and all the other reports here. So that's your way of combining them in a way to conveniently show your parent, your administration, or your PLC. Now you can also move your subject tabs around very easily. I want this one front and center. I'm going to be using it. So watch what I'm going to do. Click, drag, all the way to the front. Here it is. Easy. Just click and drag them wherever you'd like them to go. Okay. One little note about the purple tab. If you have a purple tab on your account, that means your district has decided these are important tests for you to give. So pay attention to purple for district and blue for your school site principal. One last thing is when you are looking for tests in the Test Explorer to put into that subject tab, you may decide that there are none that meet your needs, and that's totally fine. You can make your own test by using the Auto Test Creator. That is the easiest way to make tests in ESGI. So here in the Test Explorer, if you navigate over to the right-hand side where it says Auto Test Creator, click that, and now you can make your own test very easily with a list that you have stored on your computer. So watch this. In the test topic, it's giving you some ideas about what are some possible tests that you might want to make. So we have computation, which would be, let's say, a list of addition and subtraction facts or multiplication facts, letters, numbers, observational, sight words, sounds, and vocabulary. I'm just going to pick a sight word one right now. Notice because it's the Auto Test Creator, it pre-populates what we think you're going to call it, sight words, but you might want to also say this is list 6 of sight words. We give you the description and the directions, but you can change them if you'd like by highlighting it, copying something new. Content areas, language arts, pick your grade level. And you can even color code these tests. This is another little hint that people were talking about. If I want to make all my sight word tests purple, that means on my home screen, the little bar on the top will be purple. And so that's another way to organize your tests. So here we go. Here's purple. And now all I do is I get a list that I've stored on my computer, which I have a list of sight words right here on a Word document. I'm simply going to copy and paste that list of sight words right here. Look at that. So there's all my sight words. Now, I'm probably not going to make them capitalized. I know that you're all saying that. We don't capitalize our sight words. So I would go through and I would just make them like this because my Word document made them all capitalized. But I would fix them. I can actually move them around at this point, do whatever I'd like to do, and then save and close. And I have a sight word test. It's saying, where would I like to put it? I can put it in a subject tab. I can add it later if I want. All my subject tabs aren't showing, but here we go. We just made a test and there it is. We can always go back and find it by clicking on My Tests, and there it is, sight word 6, and I bet you we can add it from here. Oh, here we go. We just had to outsmart it a little bit. We can add it in any one of these, including that weekly one that we just did. So if ever in doubt, go back here and find it in the My Tests area, and then it will show the test here. All right. There we go. Let's see what's next. Up. I hope you're all enjoying your coffee too. Whole class reports. Class totals report, best one to sort your class and to see overall performance of all your kids. Great to give to your administration. You can talk about it in your PLCs, your grade level meetings. And I really want to talk to you about grade scales. We had a panel of teachers who came together to talk to us about ESGI, and they were really, really, really wanting to know about grade scales. And because they did, we think you would like to too. So let's spend some time talking about not only the class totals report, but how you can make it match your report card grades with color coding, my favorite thing. So let's show that right now. Let's talk about whole class reports. We're going to have all students chosen here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that try one report card right now because I have good data there. And then I'm going to come over to the class reports here. And you can see that the second one down is called the class totals report. So I wish we were all together because I'd make you put your hands up if you use the class totals report, but I know you probably do. So let's click on it and see what it looks like together. Now it's a lot of numbers, but that's because we're looking at an end of the year report. Yours probably doesn't look like that right now because you have all your students listed. Then notice I have 3 tests listed that were underneath that try one report card. And then I have another column called the average percent correct, which I'm going to show you is important here, that ESGI adds at the end. Now, each one of these columns represents a marking period. So B represents the baseline score, the very first time the child was given that test. That sets that baseline score. Then each one of the marking period columns appears when you reach that marking period date. And ESGI knows your marking period dates. Either you entered them when you made your account or your district did. And so if you are only in the second marking period, you're only seeing B1 and 2 right now. Now let's look at our friend Emma with uppercase letters. Emma knew only 8 uppercase letters the very first time she was given the test. So that 8 stuck there. And then the 8 moved over here to the first marking period. And then Emma was given the test multiple times. And each time she was given the test, this number hopefully increased. So it would change every single time she was given the test. And because ESGI is meant to be a progress monitoring tool, we know that Emma was given that test multiple times. Then at the last day of the marking period, she was at 18, and that's what stuck. Then the 18 moved over here and continually updated until she mastered her uppercase letters in the second marking period. And then you can see she maintained the rest of the year, which is good news. Here's our little friend Braylin, 2, 10, 23, and 26. So you can look at it that way to see growth over time, which is fabulous. But we also can use this for report cards. If we just click on current marking period, look at what it does. It gives us the score, just the current score right now for the report cards, let's say. And then the last thing we can do is sort the students by most to least proficient. So that's where that average percent correct comes in. It takes an average of these 3 tests and combines them together. So now if we come over here to the last column header, whatever the last column is, it doesn't have to be 4, click on this number 2 times. Now watch my students on the class list. They sorted. So Sarah Jane is my most proficient student. So Sarah Jane, Caleb, Maggie, Elijah, Ja'Cory, they might be in one group, and then I go down the list making groups based on data. So you can do it that way with the average percent correct, and you can also do it with any of the columns that you have here. So you could say, who knew the most lowercase letters at the beginning of the year? I'm going to go ahead and click that twice, and guess who it is? Sarah Jane. So Sarah Jane ranks high up there because she knew all 28 lowercase letters. So that's the class totals report. Can be downloaded. All of our reports can be downloaded. Download as an Excel, download as PDF, and analyze those scores, because it's important to know where the students rank and how we're going to make the best intervention for them. Now, the class grades, the next layer. So if you've never clicked on this before, watch how great the class grades scores and report look. It's right here. It's got a star next to it. You're going to be a star when you run this report. Have all students chosen, have a subject tab chosen, click on class grades, please. And here you get to decide what kind of grade scale you get. Now, when you first click on it, it's going to look like this. It's going to say, would you like to create your own grade scale? And you probably do, but there's lots of choices. Is your report card, for instance, set up as an OSNU system? That's one of the choices we have here. How about EMPN or 4321 or PDN? These are all choices that ESGI gives you. But you might also decide, I don't want to use any of those, but I notice here it says district scales. These are people in my district who have already created grade scales, and I might as well use one of theirs because they probably have already set it up correctly. So you would go down here and you would look at people's names here and you would say, oh, I recognize that person. I'm going to use that scale. Or again, create your own. So you can start from scratch if you want. You could put mastered and not mastered. So you could put M here and NM here. You would write in mastered. And not mastered. And then you can change the colors, my favorite part. So here's purple for that one. Here's orange for that one. And then you can set it up. Now it walks you through, kind of like a wizard. So it'll say, we are going to now set this up with a percentage, because we think mastered is 60 out of 100, and then not mastered is 0 to 59. But you might not have that kind of scale. You might have a point scale instead of a percentage scale. So look at this, set custom range right here. Now here, it's going to walk you through all the tests. It's saying, for your money test, what is considered mastery for this money test? Now keep in mind there's 5 questions. So is mastery 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5, and not mastered is 0 out of 3? Maybe. And then we go to the next test. It's rhyming. Now notice it's pulling from the subject tab 2122, which we already made. And now it says in the rhyming, there's 10 questions. So what's mastered? 9 out of 10 maybe? So you can keep going through all of these tests here, and it will set up the score for you. And once you're done, you will say, we're all done with this. There are a lot of tests in here. Okay, save and continue. Now we have the different subject tabs set up here. And this one's the one we just worked on, the mastered and not mastered. We don't have scores underneath that one, but if we did, we would run it and it would show the color coding. But let's show one that's already done. So this Try One report card is set up by my district for a 4-3-2-1 because that's what my district uses. So now all these tests right here, when I run this report, look at how beautiful it is. Don't you love the color coding on this? So it's exactly like the other report we just saw, but now one more layer has been applied to it. So for instance, in uppercase letters for our friend Emma here, we saw before that she had an 8 for uppercase letters, but an 8 in this district at this time constituted a 1 on the report card. So she had a 1, then she had a 2, and then she had 4s across the board. But how easy would this be to just click current marking period? Check that out. Now you've got your grades. So again, you set this up however you would like. It can match your district's report card scale or not. If you're doing a unit of study and you just want mastered and not mastered, you get to set it too. So just know that there's so many ways to customize this, but I really wanted to show you how pretty this is and how great the color coding is because it's so simple. And now you don't have to take out your calculator and figure out what a 4 means and a 3 and a 2. You just tell ESGI and it will do it for you. Isn't that great? Again, you can download this one as well. So how pretty would this be to walk into a meeting with a PDF of all of this? There you go. All right, so that's the class grades. I was so excited to show you that because everybody loves this one. And so let's see what our next topic is. Individual reports, I bet. Okay, student detail report, student progress report. Love these two reports. These are going to be the ones that hopefully you walk into meetings with and everybody is wowed by the fact you have all this data on your students. So these are individual student reports because it puts all the data for that one student on one report. So let's check it out. I'm going to pick my friend Emma here. I'm going to pick that Try One report card, which again only has those 3 tests that she has data on. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on that student detail report. This is my favorite. When you are walking into a student meeting, you definitely want this one pager. So it shows Emma, it shows the test she's been given, and then it shows the data in different ways. So here's the pie chart from that home screen. Here's those scores that we saw from the class totals report. Here's the correct and incorrect that she had on the parent letter. Here's the history graph, which shows each and every time she was given the test and how she scored, which is fantastic for RTI purposes. And then on this report too, look at the next level I can add just by clicking up here. There's that color coding. So that's one more thing that we can show the parents is how they're performing according to the district grade scales. So look at how nice that is. And if there's more tests, it will combine them all on one page for you. So it's going to make it into a small enough graph that it fits on one page because we know it's really hard sometimes at the copy machine to be running all those copies. So you can choose different students here. You can choose all students together. It'll print each one with a page break in between. So you could do a whole batch of these if you'd like. And then you can also pick from different subject tabs. My favorite, student detail report. Also, student progress report. These are very handy for midterm reporting. So look at, you can send home something like this. If it matched your report card, this would be very helpful for parents. So if each one of these categories was some kind of a category from your report card, like phonics, phonemic awareness, letter identification, whatever the categories are, you could then communicate what the score is, the percentage is, or our favorite, the color coding grade. So this would be any time of year you can send this, but really midterm is a really handy time to send home a progress report. And that's what this one is, student progress report. Here we go. We covered those student detail reports, all reports on one page, student progress, add those color codings. Now let's talk about groups. Groups is so important in ESGI, and it's often missed because it's right up there by your class list. A lot of people are missing it, so we just thought we'd highlight it because it's really handy for you to be able to differentiate your instruction if your kids are in groups in ESGI so that you can do reporting and you can do instruction for that particular group. So the item analysis report is what you're going to use. It shows you who knows what, and then you're going to make your groups in ESGI, as many as you desire. They're super flexible, and you can make a report just for a group called the Group Totals Report. With all students chosen right here, I'm going to click on the Item Analysis Report. You probably have seen this. This is a crowd favorite. This is showing your least known item in your class for uppercase letters. Happens to be letter N, and most kids know X and O. Now, clicking on this bar gives us a list on the side showing who knows letter N and who doesn't know letter N, and who is not even tested. So you can click on each one of those bars and get that same kind of information, or better yet, download it as an Excel file. Now watch what happens there. Look at this great data. We have who knows letter N up here, who doesn't know letter N, excuse me, who knows letter N here, and who is not even tested, all on a column here. So I can make groups based on individual skills if I want. I can also look at it this way. So this Excel spreadsheet has different tabs on the bottom that I'm clicking on. This one shows all my students. It shows all the uppercase letters across the top. And if it has an X there, that means they've mastered it. If it's blank, they haven't. And if it says NT, they weren't tested yet. So this is kind of neat too, because you can look down the list, down the column, I mean, and at the very bottom for letter N, it says 76%. That's 76% mastered in your class, but 96% for letter X. So you can look at it that way. You can look across at Maria and see what her score is, and so on. Very handy to download into Excel. So what are you going to do with that once you have that information? Well, you're going to come over here to the groups area. Now, you might not have noticed it before. It might not be expanded, so you might want to click that arrow there. And you can see I've already made two groups, the Sunshine group and the first grade group. So if I click on the Sunshine group, you can see I have 5 students in my Sunshine group. And notice that only those 5 students' scores show up here. How do I make groups? Just click on that Add Group button there. Name your group. This is my red group. Choose which students belong in that group, move them in, and save it. Now, when I click on the red group, those students show up here. And then the next step is to come over here and click on the Group Totals Report. Now, it looks like that class totals report that we saw before, but it's a subset. It's just the students who are in that group. So it can show their growth over time, like this, or their current scores. And how neat would this be if you had someone who comes in and just works with the red group on language skills, for instance? He or she could walk away with a report just on the students that they work with. So put them in groups, run that group totals report. If you need to make any changes because we want them to be flexible, click on that pencil icon and move students in and out. And students can be in more than one group at a time. So go ahead and make all groups, reading groups, math groups, science groups, language groups, whatever you'd like. You can add unlimited amount of groups in ESGI. Okay, I think we're at a really fun part of our presentation. Let's see. What's brewing? All right, what's brewing in ESGI? What's coming? And so let's look at that together because some of you are going to be super excited about the last thing that's on this slide. So what's brewing? We talked about self-assess. And right now you can add 3 tests to a student's account and they can take it. But what if you wanted to add 3 tests to an entire group of students? Right now, you would have to do it individually. But when the self-assessment assignment center comes along, you're going to be able to assign tests very easily to students to take for self-assess. So that's coming. We're excited about that. And those of you who have been around for a while may have remembered a piece of ESGI that allowed students to have printables where they could trace their names and they could trace different things like sight words. Well, that part's coming back to ESGI. We're calling it writing practice sheets. They'll be printables. Child will actually be able to practice different components like their name and sight words and so forth. So we're super excited about that. We hope you are too. All right, let's review. Today you learned how to navigate up to those 3 bars and also where the help was on the home screen. Please use those to customize your account and to get help as needed. You learned about ways to test today. So you can sit one-on-one with the child, you can link to devices, students can self-assess. You learned that there were different test types today. There's the yes/no, which we all knew about, but we have rubric tests, we have single score tests, and we have self-assess. You learned about those subject tabs, how to move them by dragging and dropping, how to make them personalized for you. The reason you want to is because that's what prints on the test. So go ahead and make as many subject tabs as you'd like. We talked about reports. We talked about individual student reports and class reports so that you can identify the needs of your students and communicate it effectively with all stakeholders. And we talked about groups. Definitely use the group feature in ESGI to make sure that you're meeting all the needs of all your students. Now, go grab your cup of coffee, relax, and let me know what kind of questions you have. I know you've already been writing it in. I haven't been able to check it out, but now I can look back, drink my coffee too, and see what kind of personal questions you have.
Hey, Rochelle, it's Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, for those of you who don't know, I am with ESGI. I've been with them for about 9 years on the marketing team, and everyone in the comment section is loving all the info you've shared and what's coming, and lots of compliments. So great job. Fantastic information. There was one question that was asked when you were talking about self-assess, and they wanted to know how you can make a test self-accessible. So I'm guessing they want to know if they can create their own self-assess test, is what it sounds like.
Sure, not yet. It's so complicated with the voice that has to read all the directions and all the answers that we have to do that right now. But we promise you there will be so many more tests come July 1st. We're working really hard to get those in there. So not at this time, you can't make those kind of tests, but of course you can make all your own yes/no tests, single score tests, rubric tests, and you can also copy any test that's in there. Let's cover that real quick because I don't quite cover that. In the Test Explorer, if you see a test that you like, and make sure you use these filters on the side here. So if you're only looking for a math test, for instance, you can do that here. Now notice just by doing that, there's 871 results, so you probably don't want to do that. You might want to use a grade level filter and say, show me kindergarten math tests. But maybe you see a test here that you kind of like, and then you say to yourself, I kind of like this number sense test. It's kind of cute. Let's see. So I'm going to preview it. I walk through it real quick. Oh, it's a cute like patterning test. It's got cute graphics. Okay, maybe I like that test, but I want to make some changes to it. Number one is I don't necessarily like the title, Iowa Level 5 Number Sense. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to me. So I'm going to click its name. And up here is a little pencil, and it says copy test. Now, I'm going to take off the word copy, of course. Then I'm going to take off Iowa Level 5. Maybe I don't want that on there. And then maybe this matches my Unit 6 or something that I'm doing. So I can put that on there. Sometimes I tell teachers to put their initials next to it because maybe that will help you identify that it's your test. And then you save it. And here's where you view the details. This is important too, because maybe you liked this test, but there was one thing you didn't like. Maybe you don't like this ordering the numbers question. So look at the 3 dots here. delete, done, no more question. So instead of recreating the whole test, just tweak it a little. We all do that anyway as teachers. So you can make a copy of any test that you find in ESGI except self-assess, and you can modify it in that way. So now that you have this test exactly the way you want it, then you can share it with your district if you want to, and put it in a subject tab. Remember, we made that weekly one there, and then save it. And now it's my test, and I can use it any way that I'd like from my home screen. Okay, so yeah, you can make copies of any test except those self-assess, and you can't make your own self-assess yet. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, next question. Are there any Spanish translation for the self-assessments?
Not at this time for self-assessment, no.
Okay.
We have some Spanish tests in ESGI, and you can find those if you look in the content area. We have a bank of Spanish tests here. So you take off all the filters and you can see Spanish here. And you can see Spanish tests if you're interested, but not self-assess.
Perfect. Another question is there a way to make a checklist? I want to track monthly at-home reading, or is there a better way?
That's a great question. I have to really think about it. I don't know, maybe a rubric test?
I was thinking a rubric or single score if they have a reading. Yeah.
It would be they did it or they didn't do it. So a single score would be, out of 10 times that they brought something back, they did it 8 times or something. So you would set the highest number and then you would score them against that. That would be a single score test. But I can't really think of a checklist necessarily where you would check off if somebody did something. The only thing is you could make a test, that said, brought homework in this week. It could actually be a study skills test now that I'm thinking about it. And it could be yes, no. So it could be brought their homework back, yes. Is able to do another task like tie their shoes or something. Yes, says the Pledge of Allegiance or writes down their homework at night or whatever other study skills. I mean, think about that. You could say yes, no to each one of those items in a test.
Perfect. One lady asked about the rubric test. She said, what is this about a rubric? So
let's look at them.
Show that off.
Sure. We love the rubric tests. We're so proud of them. So under the test type right here, you can pick rubric. Currently, we have 11 results, but we're working really hard to get more in here. And you can see we have math, kinder readiness, gross motor skills. I kind of like this one. Gross motor skills has balance, locomotor skills like movement, and eye-hand coordination. Okay, so those are in here. It's got advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic, so 4 levels. And then each one of the descriptors indicates if the child can do it or not. So you get to score them. Maybe you take this out on the playground, and you watch them do certain things on the playground. So it says things like tosses a ball 5 times, or can run, hop, jump, and gallop, things like that. So that's what you can do here. And you can also create your own rubric test. I clicked on create a new test over on the right-hand side where you saw me click on auto test creator before, but now it's I just clicked on create a new test, and look there's different types you can do. So there's single score, yes, no, and here's the rubric. If you click on that, you get a template. You get to choose. I want to do my own, or I can choose a reading, writing, math, or oral language. So let's just pick a reading one. And notice now it gives you some criteria that we think you would assess in the area of reading, like smoothness and pace and decoding. But you don't have to use those words. You can just highlight it and type in something new if you want. Or if you don't want 4 criteria, you just remove one. And then here's your levels, but you can increase the levels. You could say, give me 6 levels if you want. So you can see this is fully customizable. Create your own rubric test from scratch. We're excited for you to try it.
One last question. Can you share data with a teacher who does not have access to ESGI? For example, if I want to share with a child's ELL teacher, but she does not have access to ESGI.
I would print out one of those reports, probably the student detail report that we showed before if you want, or the group totals report. If she works with a group of students in your class, like this red group, maybe just print out that group totals report. See where it says download? You can actually download it and email it to her too if you want to. You don't have to print it out. So you can do a PDF or an Excel, and then she gets all the data about the kids here. So a couple different ways. You could just hand her a paper with the scores on it, or email it. So you would pick a kid and then you would run that. Well, a couple things. You might run that student detail as we talked about, or that parent letter. So the parent letter really is specific about which skills the child got correct and incorrect. And that could be super helpful for someone who works with them. And thank you so much for joining us. Give us some comments if you think this is something that we should do again, if there's some particular topics, or if you think we should just do like one on testing or one on reports or something like that. Just give us some feedback, because we always listen to what teachers have to say, because we definitely want to make your lives easier. So thank you so much for joining us. Go grab that cup of coffee. I'm so glad you came tonight. Take care, everybody.